What's up, guys? It's Tony from Streetball Strategies, where we use strategy to build your streetball legacy. Today we're continuing our series on how to prepare for the upcoming basketball season once quarantine ends. Today we're talking about rustiness. To begin with, let's define what rustiness is for those of you who may not have the experience yet. Rustiness is a partial and temporary loss of some of your muscle memory when it comes to your basketball skills. So you've been away from the court for a certain amount of time. When you left, you probably felt fine. You probably felt like you were on a certain roll in terms of the development and the process of your skills. And when you come back, you feel like you're doing everything the same way that you were when you left, but you're not seeing as good of a result as you were when you left. And it's because when you take that time off, be it a day or week or months in terms of the quarantine, you lose certain muscle memory when you don't use that skill. So once you come back to the court and you try to use that skill again, it's going to feel off. You're going to feel like you're doing things the same way, but it's not working as good as it was when you left. And that's because your muscle memory isn't as good as it was when you left the court, because you haven't used it in a certain amount of time. The first thing I want to touch on when it comes to dealing with your rustiness is frustration. It's going to be frustrating to get back on the court, finally be able to play again, and to feel like you're doing the same thing the same way you were when you left and it was working then, but now it's not because of the break. And that's going to feel frustrating. It's going to feel like you're kind of starting over from the beginning, even though you didn't do anything wrong except for have time away from the court. And that's going to be frustrating to feel like you have to start over from the beginning when you didn't do anything wrong. And feeling that frustration is fine. In fact, it's an indicator that you care, which is great. But it's all about how you respond, how you react to that frustrating feeling. Do you give up? Do you stop? Do you walk away? Do you start throwing bad quality, low quality shots at the rim to try to work your way through the frustration? It's all about your reaction to that frustration. Usually when we talk about rustiness, we're talking about shooting, because that's usually where it's most noticeable. Now, it's not only applicable to shooting. It could be any skill-based activity that you do out here, but typically when we talk about rustiness, we're talking about shooting because it's most noticeable in our shot. So for example, we come back out here, we're putting up shots the way we were when we left and it was working. We feel like we're doing the exact same thing, the exact same jump shot that we were doing when we left, except for it was working then and it's not working now. And thus, the frustration of being rusty is going to set in. Now, my advice to deal with this, as it is with anything else, is quality over quantity. It's still going to take time and repetitions to work off that rustiness. But the reps that we're putting up, we want to be as high quality as possible, right? Because high quality means less amount of reps we have to put in. Less amount of reps means less time. Less time means less possibility for wear and tear and injury. And my advice to you, as it always is quality over quantity. So what we want to do when we get out here, once the quarantine ends, and once we feel that feeling of rustiness set in, so we want high quality reps with as low quantity as possible. Now let's imagine court conditions once quarantine is over. So in my estimation, when quarantine is over, the rims are back up on the backboards and people finally come out to the park, I estimate that the court is going to be flooded. It is going to be packed more so than you've ever seen in your history out at the park. I estimate that it's going to be packed for day after day after day, and it's probably going to be that way for weeks. And what that means for you is the more people out here, the more packed it is, that means that you are going to spend more time waiting to have competition. So the way it usually works out here is you show up here, you call next, you wait in line, and then you get on the court, and if you win, then you get to stay and play the next game. If you lose, then you have to get off the court and get to the back of the line again, or try a different court. And if you're younger and less experienced, that probably is going to mean that you're going to spend more time waiting to get on the court than you are going to be actually playing and competing. The problem with that is that means a lot of standing around time, a lot of waiting time for you. It's going to be very time consuming. And sure, during that time while you're waiting to get on the court, you can be studying your competition and studying the game, which you definitely should be doing in all cases. But in terms of when quarantine is over and you're trying to get rid of rustiness, which is going to require a lot of court time, standing around and waiting and watching and studying is not going to help a lot with trying to get rid of that rust. So you could spend all day, every day, waiting around to get some court time in, and that may be what you have to do. But something that I always encourage you to do is to be the first person on the court. Get out here before everybody else does. It's definitely a classic case of the early bird gets the worm. If you want to be able to get shots up, if you want to be able to get your rust shaken off, you need time on the court. And that's going to mean that you're going to have to be here when people aren't here. And most of the time that means you're going to have to get out here before everybody else does. Now, remember to be respectful, because most city courts are surrounded by neighborhoods, and the neighbors that live by these courts, they don't want you out here bouncing a ball at 8 o'clock in the morning, but 10 o'clock in the morning, you know, that's a different story. So use your discretion, be respectful, and get out here at an appropriate time. But say if 10 o'clock is the time that you want to start getting shots up, instead of getting here at 10 o'clock and start shooting, get here at like 9:30 and start warming up, and warm up nice and slow. Get a good warm up going, nice and slow, without a basketball. And then once 10 o'clock hits, go ahead and start getting some shots up, start working that rust off. And who knows, there may be a case that you get here at 9:30 and there's already people out here playing. Well, that's up to you. That's your discretion. Again, if you think it's respectful enough for you to jump on the court and start playing at 9:30 in the morning. But remember, for this video in particular, the goal is to get rid of rust. And so if the only thing you can do is get out here before everybody else, then do what you can to get the court to yourself. Do what you can to get court time, regardless of whether it's by yourself or with people. The goal is to get court time in, get shots up, get the rust off, but doing it with quality. And lastly, I just want to remind you to enjoy the process, to have fun. Rustiness is going to be a continuous issue that you're going to have to deal with throughout your streetball career. It's always going to be there. It's always going to be something you have to deal with, but you should try to enjoy the process of coming back and working off that rust and building back up your muscle memory. Remember, we do this because we love it, because it's enjoyable. And even the process of trying to get our body back to where it should be in terms of muscle memory, even that should be enjoyable. Try to keep in mind that we love doing this and enjoy the process of going through it. Deal with your frustration with quality reps, and over time, learning how to do that for your own personal game and developing your own process of dealing with rustiness is going to help you save time and help you excel in your legacy better and longer and faster. So thank you guys for watching. If you guys like this video, please like this video. Subscribe to the channel and make sure you hit that notification bell, because next week we're continuing our series on how to deal with the quarantine once it ends. Next week we're going to talk about injuries and preventing them. So thank you guys again, and I will see you next week.
And all the losers can't even win for losing.